In 1974, U.S. Steel's huge complex in Lynch, Kentucky was pumping out the coal and business was thriving. It was soon after decided that with the establishment of the new Lynch 37 mine, that instead of building its coal to Lynch's massive complex, that a new spur would be built just off the main line at the south end of Chad Yard to haul its coal. The spur would follow the Cloverlick hauler just under 3 miles to service a second loadout. It would have a 12,000-ton capacity flood-loading silo that would gain the name Lynch 2. It would be here that some of the first unit trains on the L&N would be loaded. With the 37 mine and Lynch 2's success, the Cloverlick hauler would boom, side after side and mine after mine, each one gaining access to more coal reserves. With the difference in metallurgic coal, a secondary loadout was constructed a few thousand feet away from Lynch 2 to service the Cloverlick Branch mines, and would gain the fitting name Lynch 3. Lynch 2 would load raw coal exclusively from the 37 mine that would then be shipped to Corbin, and Lynch 3 would take the rest. And thus, a major coal branch was born. In 1984, U.S. Steel would sell its Cumberland and Corbin properties to Arch Minerals, a massive St. Louis-based company, forming what would become the Arch of Kentucky division. Arch would go on to purchase the International Harvester operations in Benham in 1986 and the remaining U.S. Steel Lynch operations in 1989. The High Splint No. 1 and 2 mines, alongside Lynch 37 mine, became the top producers of coal in eastern Kentucky, loading 2-unit trains almost daily. In an attempt to reduce excessive rail transportation, a $5 million expansion to the Cave Branch plant, or Lynch 3, began in 1990 to add a fine coal cleaning circuit to its system. Total capacity there was increased from 500 tons per hour to 750. This all but doomed the 40-year-old Corbin plant, which was idled soon after. The 2 high splint mines eventually played out and was replaced by the Owl seam nearby. Arch would continue to push for more coal reserves around the area. The original loadout in Lynch would come to a standstill around 92, adding that much more responsibility on the Cloverlick complex. More than 70% of the 7.5 million tons of coal mined in 1995 would come from the Arch 37 mine and was shipped out via Kentucky Utilities and Duke Power. Alas, the 37 mine would draw to a close and a unit train would leave Lynch 2 for the last time in March of 1998. There wasn't anything to fear, however, as Lynch 3 was still producing coal at full power, but the slack would lower to only 1 train a day. In 2011, things began to look better for the Cloverlick Spur, as a more modern flood loader would be constructed a few feet away from the old Lynch 2 silo that would take the hauler by storm. Though technically Lynch 4, the new flood loader took the name of Lynch 3 and would replace the Cave Branch Lynch 3. Though the hauler now held 2 idle loadouts, the new Lynch 3 picked up the extra slack and continued to load 2 unit trains a day for years to come. Around 2014, the war on coal began, which heavily impacted the Cumberland Valley subdivision. The trains would slow to less than 1 a day, to at most a mere 5 a week, and following, the massive repair shops at Corbin would close in 2015. Trains would become more and more scarce as coal continued to fall. Companies would come in and purchase the site, all with the promise of restoring jobs. Blackjewel would step in and purchase the site, only to file for bankruptcy in summer of 2019. As the miners lay wait for a payday, word quickly spread that a train had arrived to load at Lynch 3. The word spread fast, and soon enough, unpaid miners piled upon the tracks, refusing to let the train leave. The Blackjewel protest had begun. A few days after the initial stance against the train, conditions were met to let the locomotives leave as long as they left the coal. As the engines uncoupled, the loaded hoppers would lay wait for the next 2 months as families near and far camped out on the railroad tracks. All the while, the bankruptcy settlement was in court. At last, the news broke that a company known as Copperglow had purchased the sites and promised to hire the employees back onto work in their mines. On September 26th, the miners and families packed up and the train could leave. As the final hopper rolled away from Lynch 3, the site would become dormant for the first time since 1974. As the next 2 years ticked by, not only would the rails rust and fall into disrepair, but the inner mechanics of the loadout would be stolen and become unoperational. All hope was lost, as the coal was now being shipped through the mountain and loaded via Norfolk Southern and Appalachia, Virginia. But finally, in early 2022, the news broke that the Lynch 3 loadout would be restored and operational by July of that year. And that brings us full circle. The tipple is functioning again, and the tracks are in the process of being repaired, all leading up to the first train to load next month. And believe me, I'll be there. I hope you all enjoyed this first installment to the series, and there will be many more to come. Thanks for watching, everyone.